Hey mathematics learners, welcome to Distance Learning with Lee, where I make learning mathematics super easy. On today's video tutorial, guys, we are going to be going through question 1 of the grade 12 mathematics June 2022 paper 1 that was written by the Gauteng province learners. So if you're not from Gauteng, guys, please do not be discouraged and click off the video tutorial. The main reason why I'm uploading this video tutorial is so that we can all revise the work that we've done in term 1 and in term 2. So this video tutorial, guys, is going to be a great way for all of us to revise the work that we have done in term 1 and in term 2. And I'll also try and upload the Mpumalanga province June 2022 paper 1 that was also written as well as a way for all of us to revise, guys. All right, so please make sure that you watch this video tutorial. It's going to be a great help, right? And in this video tutorial, guys, we are going to be tackling question 1, like I mentioned. And question 1, guys, we are basically solving different kinds of algebraic equations, right? We're solving a quadratic equation using the quadratic formula. We're going to be solving an algebraic equation that involves a surd, right? That is a surd. So we're going to be involving solving an algebraic equation that involves surds, and we're also going to be solving an algebraic equation, right, that involves inequalities, right? So please make sure that you watch this video tutorial. It's going to be a great way for you guys to practice the work that you've done in term 1, right? All right, guys, and I also wanted to share with you guys a great website that you guys can use to help you in your preparations for your final exam, right? So this website is called learn.yolit.co.za, right? So this is a great website that you guys can use to download past papers that I use on my channel, right? You can download the June 2021 past paper that I've done videos on this website, guys. And there's also amazing textbooks and study guides that you guys can also download from this website. Like I highly recommend the Mind the Gap study guide. This is a great study guide that simplifies all concepts, right? It summarizes everything. It breaks down every concept that you guys learn in your mathematics, and it just makes it straightforward and easy to understand. I highly recommend the Mind the Gap study guide for you guys, right? And you can also just download the Platinum Mathematics Navigation Pack as well, the Mind Action Series Mathematics textbook, right? Because I do also believe that some of these textbooks you guys also use in school, right? So if you don't have a textbook, or maybe you couldn't afford to buy a textbook, right? You can also just download this e-textbook and use it to also prepare, right? So you don't have to stress if you don't have a textbook. You can just download these textbooks here on this website, as well as the Platinum Mathematics textbook as well. You can also get it from this website, right? There's also amazing practice books that are also on this website, right? There's a Euclidean geometry practice book that you can also download from this website, the trigonometry practice book that you can also download from this website, guys. This website is really the plug, right? I'm plugging you guys with this website. It's a great website that you guys can go to just download all the resources that you guys will need to help you prepare for your final exam, right? So please go have a look at this website. I'll leave the link to this website on the description box. And yeah, just download the past papers there, and then you can come back here and follow with me here on the channel, right? So guys, without any further ado, let's get started with the video tutorial. We are tackling question 1 from the grade 12 mathematics June 2022 paper 1 that is written in the Gauteng province. But like I said, guys, if you're not from the Gauteng province, please do not be discouraged. We are literally just using this past paper as a way for us to revise the work that we've done in term 1 and in term 2. Okay, so let's get started with the video tutorial. All right, guys, so let's start with question 1.1.1. Okay, so question 1.1, guys, we just solving for x in each of these questions, right? So let's start with question 1.1. Okay, question 1.1. 1.1. Okay, so it's x squared is equal to negative 4x, right? So guys, when we are solving this type of an equation, the first thing that you guys need to basically think of or remember is that this is actually a quadratic equation, right? And if you are dealing with a quadratic equation, you guys need to remember that when you're dealing with a quadratic equation, before you can even just start solving for x, that quadratic equation needs to be in the form of ax squared plus bx plus c, right, which is equal to 0 before you can even start solving that equation, right? So with this particular equation, what we need to do is we need to move this minus 4x, right, to the left hand side, right, so that it is in the form of ax squared plus bx plus c, which is equal to 0, and then we can start solving this equation. Okay, it's going to be x squared plus, because it moves to the left hand side, it's going to be plus 4x, right, plus 0, which is equal to 0. Okay, we don't have a constant here, right? So it's like saying x squared plus 4x plus 0. Okay, and I'm sure you guys are going to be comfortable with me removing that 0 there, right? Because I just wanted to show you that we're basically putting it in the form of ax squared plus bx plus c. Okay, so now we see that we've got that equation in that form, right? Then now we can basically start and solve this equation. So what is the first thing that we see in this case? Okay, we see that we've got a common factor, and that common factor that we have, right, is x. So what can we do now? We can just take out the x, and when we take out the x, you're going to be left with your x plus 4, which is equal to 0, right? And then from here, guys, we've basically solved this equation. The last thing that we need to do is that we can say that x is equal to 0, right? Or, okay, you're going to take that algebraic expression, x plus 4, which is equal to 0, and you're going to solve this for x. So x is equal to negative 4. Okay, so for this equation, or for this question 1.1, our answer is x is equal to 0 and x is equal to negative 4. Okay, next question. Question 1.2. Okay, so question 1.2, guys, we've got x squared plus x minus 1, which is equal to 0. Okay, and we're still solving for x. So what do you notice about this question? This is also a quadratic equation in the form of ax squared plus bx plus c. But now we're given a hint as to how we should go about solving this equation. They tell us that we need to correct to 2 decimal places. So guys, if they say correct to 2 decimal places, that is the tip, right? That is what, there needs to be a light bulb moment. Light bulb light bulb light bulb moment that happens in your head, that you need to remember that you actually need to use the quadratic formula to solve this equation. You cannot just use the process of inspection where you just put 2 brackets, right? 2 brackets is equal to 0, and then you put an x and you put an x there, and then since it's a negative there, then you know that it's going to be a plus and a minus there, and because it's a 1 there, you look for the factors of 1, that if you plus or subtract them, they'll give you, you will not get to your answer. Okay, you will struggle tremendously to basically solve for x using this method, right? So when they say you need to correct to 2 decimal places, guys, it is a hint for you guys to not even stress your life. You need to use the quadratic formula, right? So what is the quadratic formula? It is x is equal to minus b plus minus. Guys, the quadratic formula is actually given to you guys in the formula sheet, right? So this is your formula sheet, okay? And that is the quadratic formula. It is given to you guys, okay? So you don't have to panic. They give you the quadratic formula. So you literally go to the back, okay, of your paper. You'll get the formula sheet. The quadratic formula is there. You literally copy and paste, copy it from the back, right? And you just jot it down. So that is what we're going to do. So it's minus b plus or minus, right? It's going to be b squared minus 4ac all over 2a. Okay, So what is our A? What is our B? What is our C? Okay, so what is our A, guys? Right? So our A is the coefficient for your x squared. That is your A, and it's 1. Okay, we know that there's like an invisible 1 there, right? So your A is equal to 1. Okay, what is your B? Your B is your coefficient for your x, right? We also know that there's also an invisible 1 there, right? So your B is also equal to 1. And then what is your C? C for constant, right? So that is our constant there, and your C is equal to -1, right? And then you're simply going to substitute all these values into your quadratic formula. So it's going to be minus, what is our B? We said our B is 1, so it's going to be 1 plus or minus B squared. We said your B is 1, so it's going to be 1 squared minus 4. What is your A? We said your A is 1. What is your C? We said it's -1 all over 2. What is your A? We said your A is 1. Okay, and then, okay, I'm just going to put a video here where I show you how you basically substitute all these values into your calculator, right? And then when you substitute the values into your calculator, if you start with the positive, right? I'll show you here in the video, right? If you start with the positive, your x is equal to 0.62, guys. They said correct to 2 decimal places. So 2 decimal places is 0.62, or your x is equal to -1.62. Okay, if you substitute the negative part, right? So I'll make sure that I insert that video there where I show you guys how you're supposed to insert all these values into your calculator. Okay, so we found that your x is equal to 0.62, and we also found that your x is equal to -1.62. All right, guys, let us go to question 1.3. Question 1.1.3. Okay, so with question 1.1.3, guys, I'm sure here you can see this is one of those questions that can make students panic because we've got surds now. Okay, but please don't panic because I'm here and I'm going to explain everything to you guys as to how you should go about solving this problem, all right? So if you're given the square root of x plus 4 minus 4 over the square root of x minus 2. So what you need to do, guys, if you're given an algebraic equation that has a surd, you need to remember that you actually need to make sure that you isolate that surd, okay? And by isolating the surd, it'll make it easier to go about continuing and solving the rest of the equation. Okay, so let's start off by isolating our surd, right? We're going to start off by isolating this surd here because it's on its own. Okay, so we're going to say it's going to be the square root of x plus 4, which is equal to 4 over, right, the square root of x minus 2. Okay, we've isolated our surd. Okay, so what is the next step here, guys? The next step is that you need to basically square this surd because we want to get rid of that square root, right? We want to get rid of the surd. So to get rid of the surd, we know that we can square it, right? But what you do on the left hand side, you also need to do on the right hand side. So if you square the left hand side, you need to square the right hand side, right? And then you'll be left with x plus 4, which is equal to, okay? So we can basically write out this 4 over x minus 2 twice, okay? Okay, and if you write it out twice, guys, okay, we'll just repeat this part here. It's x plus 4, which is equal to 4 times 4, guys, is equal to 16 over, right? If you multiply a square root by another, so if you multiply, let's actually use this. Square root of 2 multiplied by the square root of 2, right? If you were to put this into your calculator, you'll see that your answer is actually going to be 2. Okay, why is that? Okay, if you actually were to change the square root of 2 into exponential form, right? So this is just an additional explanation so that you guys see what's happening. Okay, So if you were to change that into exponential form, it'll be 2, right, to the power of 1 over 2, okay? If you want to change a third into exponential form, it's going to be 2 to the power of 1 over 2, right? This 2 to the power of 1, and then we also know that there's also an invisible 2 there, right? So if you want to now change the square root of 2 into exponential form, you say 2 to the power of the exponential that's inside the bracket all over, right? That 2 there, right? Multiplied by 2 to the power of 1 over 2, right? And then what do you remember about exponential laws, right? If you have the same base, right, and you are multiplying terms that have the same base, that means that you need to add your exponents. So it's 2 to the power of 1 over 2 plus 1 over 2, right? Same base, we add your exponents, right? Therefore, your answer is going to be 2 to the power of a half plus a half is 1, right? So that is why our answer is 2. So that is basically the same concept that we are basically using here. If you're multiplying that square root of x minus 2 with the square root of x minus 2, what's going to happen, right? It's like saying x minus 2 to the power of a half multiplied by x minus 2 to the power of a half, right? You've got the same base, therefore you're going to add your exponents. So it's 1 over 2 plus 1 over 2. So it's going to be x minus 2 to the power of 1, right? So that is our final answer here. It's going to be x minus 2. Okay, so I hope I didn't lose anyone there, right? And then from here, guys, what do? We can simply now just simplify this expression further, right? Because we've gotten rid of that third that was making our lives complicated, right? So what do we do now to simplify this, right? We want to get rid of that denominator, right? So to get rid of the denominator, okay, so to get rid of the denominator, what do, guys? You need to multiply by x minus 2, right? And if you also multiply by x minus 2 on the left-hand side, you also need to multiply by x minus 2 on the right-hand side, right? Or you can, another learner could just see that we can just simply cross multiply, okay? So if you cross multiply, you'll still have that x minus 2 multiplied by x plus 4, okay? So if we multiply by that denominator, it cancels on the right-hand side. And on the left-hand side, you'll be left with x minus 2 multiplied by x plus 4, which is equal to 16. Okay. And then from here, what do? Okay. We just basically get rid of these brackets, right? So it's going to be x times x. It's going to be x squared. I'm just going to do it on this side. Okay. It's going to be x times x. It's going to be x squared, right? And then x times positive 4, it's going to be plus 4x, right? And then minus 2 times x is going to be minus 2x. And then it's going to be minus 2 times it by positive 4. It's going to be minus 8, which is equal to 16. We're going to add all our like terms. Okay, we're going to add our like terms. So it's going to be x squared plus 4 minus 2. It's going to be plus 2x. Okay, and then minus 8, which is equal to 16, right? And then, guys, you need to remember, if you want to solve the quadratic equation, it always needs to be in the form of ax squared plus bx plus c, which is equal to 0, right? So what is the problem here? Is that this 16 needs to go to the left-hand side so that we have a 0 on the right-hand side, right? So then we continue. So it's going to be x squared plus 2x, right? Minus 8 minus 16, which is equal to 0. Okay? And therefore, we simplify further. X squared plus 2x minus 24 minus 8 minus 16 is equal to minus 24, which is equal to 0. And then, guys, we don't have to use the quadratic formula here. Okay, we can simply factorize this using the process of inspection, right? So let's just quickly go through how we factorize this using the process of inspection, right? So we've got an x squared there. So we're going to have two x's, right? So x and x. Okay, then we look at this sign here. Okay, this sign here tells us which signs we need to put in our two brackets. So if it's a negative sign, then it needs to be a positive and a negative, because a positive, right, a positive multiplied by a negative is going to give us a negative. You can also just check that out for yourself. Positive 1 multiplied by a negative 1 will give you negative 1, right? So we need to have a positive and a negative, because a positive number multiplied by a negative number will always give us a negative number. Okay, so we're fine with the signs. Let's continue, right? So now we need to decide which two numbers we are going to put in the last two brackets, right? So we're going to look at the factors of 24, right? Factors of 24 that if I plus and subtract them will give me 2. So what are the factors of 24? Factors are numbers that can go into 24 without leaving a remainder, right? So 2 is a factor because 2 can go into, okay, let's start with 1. 1 can go into 24, 2 can go into 24, right? 3 go into 24, right? 3 can go into 24, 4 can go into 24. Okay, 4 can go into 20. Okay, 6 can go into 24. 8 can go into 24, right? So you're going to keep that energy going. And then from these factors of 24, you're going to look for a nice combination that if I plus and I minus them together, they will give me a positive 2, right? We want a positive 2, okay? So we're going to look for a nice combination. So we're going to look for two numbers, right? That if you plus or minus them will give me a plus 2, right? So what are those two numbers? Then we need to think. Okay, so it needs to be two numbers that if you multiply them will give us negative 24. If you multiply them, they'll give you negative 24. And if you add and subtract those numbers together, they'll give you positive 2. So what are those two numbers? Okay, so it's 6 and 4. Positive 6 and negative 4, right? We can check. If you say positive 6 multiplied by negative 4, you actually get negative 24. And then if you say positive 6 minus 4, you actually get 2, right? So we've basically found those two values, okay, that if you multiply them, they'll give you negative 24. And the two numbers, if you subtract them or add them together, they'll actually give you positive 2. So we find we've actually now factorized this algebraic equation. So what's left is for us to solve for x. So x plus 6 is equal to 0. X is equal to negative 6. Or, okay, x minus 4 is equal to 0. X is equal to 4. So we found basically the solution for this algebraic equation. X is equal to negative 6 and x is equal to 4. Okay, and let us have a look at the last question. The last question, basically, we are given an inequality equation, right? Guys, if you haven't watched my video where I explain how you basically solve inequalities, please make sure that you watch that video. It is super informative, right? So the first thing that you guys need to do when you are dealing with an inequality equation is that you need to find the critical values, right? You need to find the critical values. Okay, so let us start off by finding the critical values. How can we find the critical values? Okay, let us get rid of these brackets. So it's x multiplied by negative 3x. It's going to be equal to negative 3x squared. Okay, and then x multiplied by positive 1 is positive x. And then positive 2 multiplied by negative 3 is negative 6x. Okay, positive 2 multiplied by negative 3x is negative 6x. And positive 2 multiplied by positive 1 is positive 2 is greater than 0. Okay, this question Okay, let's just first find the critical values before we actually have a look at what the question is asking from us, okay? Because this question is basically asking us to find where this quadratic function is greater than 0. Okay, we need to find where this quadratic function is greater than 0. And for us to be able to find where this quadratic function is greater than 0, we need to first find these critical values of this quadratic function, right? And then we need to put the critical values basically on our quadratic function, and then we can start solving. Okay, so let's just do that, right? So let's simplify this further. It's going to be negative 3x squared. It's positive x minus 6x, right? It's going to be equal to minus 5x plus 2 is greater than 0. Okay, so guys, here we cannot simplify this further using um, a process of inspection, guys, but we can use the quadratic formula, right? So when you use the quadratic formula to find the values of our x, okay, we know that this is our a, right? We know that this is our b, okay, and then we know that this is our c, okay. We are simply going to substitute these values into our quadratic formula to find the values of x. So x is equal to minus b plus or minus b squared minus 4ac all over 2a. Okay, substitute these values. So it's minus, what's b? It's minus 5 plus minus, okay, square root of, what's your b? It's minus 5 all squared minus 4. What's your a? Is minus 3. What's your c? It's positive 2 all over 2. What is your a? It's minus 3. Okay, so I'm going to show you guys how I substitute these values into my calculator. Okay, and then when you substitute these values into your calculator, you'll find that your x is equal to negative 2, or your x is equal to 1 over 3. Okay, so now guys, we have basically found the critical values of this quadratic function. Okay, we basically found the critical values for this quadratic function. We do agree that it is in fact a quadratic function because the highest degree here is 2, right? So we do know that we are in fact dealing with a quadratic function, right? Because it is also in the form of ax squared plus bx plus c. So it is in fact a quadratic function. Okay, but what kind of a quadratic function is this? Okay, we've got a value of a, guys. Okay, a value of a that is actually less than 0. Our a is less than 0. So we know that if we're dealing with a quadratic function that has a value of a that is less than 0, it tells us that it is frowning. Okay, a quadratic function looks like that. It's frowning. Okay, so that's the first thing. That's the second thing that you need to do, right? So that's how a quadratic function looks. It is frowning. Okay, all right. And then from here, guys, we're gonna put our critical values, right, on our function, right? The first critical value is negative 2. So negative 2 is most definitely going to be on the negative side, or on the negative x-axis. And our 1 over 3 is going to be on our positive x-axis, right? And then now we go back to what our question is saying. Our question wants to find out where this function is greater than 0. Okay, so now we go back to our diagram and you see, where is this function greater than 0? Do you agree that this function is less than 0 here at the bottom, right? Because this is our 0, okay? This is our 0. Okay, let's just do that. This is our x-axis. This is our y-axis. This is our 0. Okay, so when we are above our x-axis, it's positive. When we are below our x-axis is negative, right? So they want to find out where this function is greater than 0. So where is this function greater than 0? Okay, so this function is most definitely greater than 0 there. Okay, because we can see that there, this function is actually greater than 0. It's above our x-axis, right? So that is basically our answer, right? So now how will we write out our answer? So we can just put an X there, okay? And to get, okay, so to give our answer in set builder notation, right? If you had to give our answer in set builder notation, right? This function is greater than 0, right? When X is, right? We see here, this is our X. When X is actually greater than negative 2, but it's less than 1 over 3. Okay, so it's less than 1 over 3, but it's greater than negative 2. Okay, and then if you had to now write this in interval notation, because you can actually write it in set builder notation or in interval notation, right? So in interval notation, the function is greater than 0 between negative 2 and 1 over 3. Okay. Okay. And X is an element of real numbers. Okay. Okay. X is an element of real numbers. Okay. So that is our final answer for question 1.1.4. Okay. So I hope that I helped you guys in how you're supposed to approach each and every question here. I think the take from this question is that when you're dealing with a quadratic equation, you need to always remember that before you can even attempt to solve that equation, it needs to be in the form of ax squared plus bx plus c, which is equal to 0. And once it is in that form, then you can start substituting things into your quadratic formula, right? And you can start obviously also just using the process of inspection to solve the equation further. Okay. And another thing here, guys, when you're dealing with an algebraic equation that involves surds, make sure that you isolate the surd. Okay, so in this case, both of these equations have surds. Okay, but the one that only has a surd is this one here. So isolate that one, because once you isolate it, it makes it easier for you guys to basically get rid of that surd by squaring it. Okay. Okay, and then the last question, the take for the last question, guys, is that we are dealing with an inequality, a quadratic inequality. The first thing that we did is we got rid of the brackets. The second thing that we did, we made sure that our equation is in the form of ax squared plus bx plus c. And then here we saw that we can't just use the process of inspection to simplify or solve for x, but we can use the quadratic formula. So that is exactly what we did. We substituted our value of a, our b, and our c into our quadratic formula to get our x, and we found that our x was equal to negative 2 and our x is also equal to 1 over 3, right? And then from there we went and we're like, okay, now we need to now determine where this function is actually greater than 0. Right, so we went and we roughly just drew a sketch of how this quadratic function is going to look. Okay, so with this quadratic function, okay, we see that, okay, our a is actually less than 0, and we know that if your a is less than 0, okay, that means that your quadratic function is actually making a sad face like that. Okay, so that's how our quadratic function looks. Okay, and then from there, okay, we just put your critical values on your function, which is negative 2 and 1 over 3. And then from there, we can just simply see that this function is greater than 0 above your x-axis. So it's in that part there. And then we gave our answer. You can give your answer in set builder notation, depending on which method you are comfortable with. They accept both methods unless they tell you to give it in set builder notation or interval notation. So then that is our final answer. Okay, and don't forget to state that x is an element of real numbers, and that is also our answer there. And don't forget to state that your x is an element of real numbers. Okay, so that is where we're gonna stop it for today, guys. Okay, please make sure that you are subscribed to the channel. And also, please make sure that you click on that like button, because that really helps the channel. And also, guys, don't forget to go check out that learn.yolet.co.za website, because that is really a great website that you guys can use to get your resources. Okay, so in our next question, guys, we are going to be solving simultaneously for x and y. So please make sure that you are subscribed, because we're going to be tackling this question and I'm going to be showing you guys how we can basically solve simultaneous equations using the process of substitution. Okay, so please make sure that you click on that notification bell so that you get notified when I upload the video tutorial, and I'll see you guys on my next upload. That is it, guys, and I'll see you guys on my next upload, Distance Learning with Lee, where I make learning mathematics super easy. Bye, guys.